So, I think that we are ready to start our session. And our first speaker for this session is Professor Konstantinos Agorastos, who is going to make a presentation regarding the accounting comparison of post-merger economic performance of Greek acquiring listed firms in domestic versus international markets and acquisition in Southeast Europe. So, Professor Agorastos, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mergers and acquisitions. The realization of merger and acquisitions is one of the main elements of contemporary corporate restructuring. Mergers and acquisition increased actively in mainly imposed by tense competition involving technology, changing regulation in the financial markets and many other factors. The process of internationalization of the expansion of the European Union created an increasingly competitive business environment and has fostered the whole activity in recent years. International mergers and acquisitions are required diachronically a special category of merger activities and present special peculiarities than the domestic ones for post-merger performance. Merger and acquisition and economic performance. The economic performance of a firm is evaluated with its performance at some profitability ratios. For the purpose of this study, 5 financial ratios, profitability ratios, are deployed, which are the following ratios. Return to owners' equity, ROE before taxes, return on total assets before the interest and taxes, return on total assets before taxes, gross profit margin, and EBIT margin that symbolized with code R5, the previous 4 R4, R3, R2, R1, etc. Data sample selection, international and domestic merger and acquisitions. International merger and acquisition events of Greek listed firms have been tracked in the period from 1998 to 2002. We couldn't find any other data for the after 2002. It's very difficult to try out and find this data for countries like Bulgaria, Romania, and Albania, and the 3 countries with the largest Greek investments in the Southeast Europe, Bulgaria, Romania, and Albania. From their announcement on the website of the ASA, excluding for them the firms with bank activities. The final research sample consists for 19 Greek-listed firms that have been involved at international merger and acquisitions, as requires in the above referred period, and are listed in the Athens Stock Exchange. This consists the first research group sample. Respectively, 19 Greek-listed firms that have performed domestic merger and acquisition in the same period, with relevant business activities and the most possible similarities with the previous firm, attract and consists the second group sample of examined firms. The final whole sample consists from 38 Greek-listed firms with 19 merger and acquisition events for each merger and acquisition category, international and domestic. Methodology and applying of financial ratios. The crucial research question that is investigated for this sample by examining the above-mentioned ratio is the following. Post-merger economic performance in the post-merger period is greater for the acquiring firm involved in international merger and acquisition than domestic ones. In this study, the following case and sub-cases have been considered for the sample alpha the case of the comparison of acquiring firms that international merger and acquisition compared with the firms with domestic ones for 3 years after the merger and acquisition event. Vita, the sub-case of the comparison of acquiring firms with international merger and acquisitions compared with the firms with domestic ones for 2 years after the merger and acquisition event. And gamma, the sub-case of the comparison of acquiring firms with international merger and acquisition compared with the firms with domestic ones for 1 year after the merger and acquisitions event. The methodology, the general form for the hypothesis that is examined for its period. Its ratio R1 to R5 and sub-cases alpha, beta, gamma separately is the following. HOIG for there is no significant difference for of the financial ratio I in post-merger period of sub-case J between international and domestic merger and acquisition for the acquiring firms. H1IJ for there is a significant difference of the financial ratio I in post-merger period of sub-case J between international and domestic merger and acquisition for the acquiring firms, where I is R1 to R5 and J alpha, beta, gamma. The selected financial ratios for each company of the sample over a 3-year period after here TAF plus 1, TAF plus 2, TAF plus 3. The merger and acquisition event are calculated and the mean from the sum of each company ratio with an international merger for this year is compared with the equivalent mean of a company with a domestic merger, respectively. In similar processes, the sub-cases Vita and Gamma for 2 years and 1 after, respectively, are evaluated. To test this hypothesis to independent sample, mean t-tests are applied. Results for ratio analysis international versus domestic merger and acquisitions. The received results present that 3 years later, 4 out of 5 accounting ratios, see R1 to R4 below, have changed significantly due to the merger and acquisition events. And this clearly reveals that the international merger and acquisitions have a better post-merger economic performance than the domestic ones 3 years later after their merger and acquisition transactions. Interpretation of results and further evidence, comparison of domestic merger and acquisition versus market control sample, in order to examine the existence of a better performance or not of the firms with domestic merger and acquisition in contrast to all listed Greek firms of this period market performance in Greece. The post-merger economic performance of domestic merger acquisition is compared with the general economic performance of all listed firms in this period, market control sample. Similarly, than below, the same ratio R1 to R5 and sub-cases alpha, beta, gamma separately are examined for this comparison at the research sample of this study. And the crucial research question that is investigated for this sample by examining the above-mentioned ratios is following. Post-merger economic performance in the post-merger period is greater for the acquiring firm involved in domestic merger and acquisitions than market control sample or not. The results of this ratio analysis are as above, as follow. The received results present that 3 years later, 3 out of 5 accounting ratios, R1, R2, R3, have changed significantly due to the mergers and acquisition events. This clearly reveals that domestic merger and acquisitions 3 years after their merger and acquisitions have not had a better post-merger economic performance than the market control sample. Interpretation of results and further evidence comparison of international merger acquisition versus market control sample who have the same the results from ratio analysis. The received results presented that 3 years later 1 out of 5 accounting ratios R4 had changed significantly due to the merger acquisition events. This reveals that international mergers and acquisitions 3 years after the mergers and acquisitions have a better post-merger economic performance than the market control sample. This paper examines the impact of merger acquisition on the economic performance of merger-involved Greek-listed firms using accounting data, financial ratios, and domestic versus international merger and acquisition transactions in Southeast European countries and 3 Balkan countries with the larger Greek investments, Bulgaria, Romania, and Albania, in the period from 1998 to 2002, in order to evaluate the post-merger economic performance of a sample of firms involved in domestic merger acquisitions in this period as acquirers is compared with an equivalent sample of firms with similar characteristics involved in international merger acquisition. The study investigates if post-merger economic performance in post-merger period is greater than for the acquiring firm involved in international merger acquisition than domestic ones. For the purpose of the study and to measure firms' economic performance, 5 profitability ratios are employed to compare the post-merger economic performance of the 2 groups at 3 years after the merger and acquisition announcements, as well for the cases of 2 and 1 year after merger acquisitions. Also to compare the merger acquisitions involved firms with the general economic performance of all listed firms in this period, market control sample, and the results revealed in general that the international merger and acquisitions had a better post-merger economic performance at all cases for the acquiring firms than the domestic merger and acquisitions. Furthermore, in contrast to the market control sample of this period, the national merger and acquisition had also a superior performance. Thank you for your attention.
Hello. I would like to talk a bit about the financial crisis and the prospects for investment in the energy sector in Bulgaria. Yes. Hello. As everybody knows, the energy sector is a key sector in every economy, so it is important to know what opportunity it offers, especially now that we are in a crisis period and everybody thinks that investment opportunities are limited. I want to show with these presentations that still there are some possibilities for achieving some profit. So, let's take a brief look on the impact of the crisis on the Bulgarian economy. So, according to the latest statistical data, in Q4 2009, in terms of year-over-year change, GDP has shrunk with 5.9%, private consumption decreased by 8.7%, consumer confidence by 54%, imports by 20%, gross fixed capital formation decreased by 35.4%, and unemployment grew to almost 8%. Apart from that, capacity utilization of industry was only 64.5 compared to 70.6. Okay, so in this situation, are there any opportunities, and if yes, what they are? The financial crisis, combined with high prices of conventional primary energy sources and worsening climate, brings to the foreground the necessity as well as the opportunity for working harder to find alternative solutions to the energy needs. As we are part of the European Union, we have to take into consideration the policies of the Union with regards to energy and what they are. The EU has set goals that by 2020 it has to decrease the CO2 emissions to 20% compared to the base 1999. And the second thing is to increase to 20% the share of renewables in the total energy consumption. Targets for the different countries are different depending on the situation. So for Bulgaria the target is 16%. What is the situation on the Bulgarian market currently? With regards to energy production, we can see, if we see the latest data for the last 5 years, for which we have reliable statistical data released, no significant impact of the crisis. We don't see any significant change with regards to production. As we can see, it stays almost at similar levels for the last years. So we don't see any decrease here. Some facts about the Bulgarian energy market. Energy dependency for the period 1998-2007, calculated as the ratio of net imports to gross consumption, is around 45%, and split by source, it is 4% for coal, between 90 and 100% for natural gas, and 100% for oil. So in general, we have a pronounced dependency on energy, as we do not produce a lot, except for coal. Here is a graph that illustrates what I said just a few minutes ago. The dependency, energy dependency, total energy dependency of the economy. We see that it's going up. Bulgarian energy mix is well balanced though. There is no pronounced dominance of any energy source, which is positive in terms of possibilities for its optimization. Oil and petroleum products hold the first place among all energy sources, both in final consumption, 39%, and in the process of energy transformation, 36% respectively. As regards final energy consumption, oil and petroleum products are followed by electricity, 25%, natural gas, 11%, and heat power, 9%. As regards energy transformation, oil is followed by coal, 35%, nuclear energy, 18%, and natural gas and hard fuels, 5%. Here is an illustration of the data. As we can see, we have a well-balanced mix, different sources. Again, energy inputs for the production of final energy versus, final energy according to latest data. We see again a well-balanced mix. Okay, now that we have said a few facts about the situation in the energy market in Bulgaria, what inferences can we draw based on this? So, most probably, if we consider the tendency in the development of the Bulgarian economy, which is primarily services and tourism and light industry, energy consumption is not going to grow significantly. Okay then, so what is the problem? The main problem will be not so much rising energy demand, but rising prices of conventional energy sources, respectively increasing the import bill, and pressure from EU to abide by the agreement that we have to reach the target for 16% share of renewables in the final energy consumption by 2020, which is currently 9.4, so we have a way to go. How to reduce the possible negative effects for the economy arising from the increasing prices of conventional sources is one of the main challenges for the Bulgarian government as well as for the business, and how to achieve the energy target set out by the EU. What can be done? Possible solutions are: first, work further towards improving the energy mix of the country. Main opportunities for the business in this respect are in the field of increasing natural gas distribution. Currently, only 1.5% of the households in Bulgaria have access to natural gas. For EU, this indicator is 55. Low gas consumption by households is the reason for high electricity consumption, 40% in comparison with EU, where it is 11%. So we have to further work on developing the gas distribution networks, and there are possibilities for investment on the part of the business, which can turn out to be profitable. Thus, as a result of the current situation of low gas consumption in Bulgaria, more primary energy is lost compared to the loss during the use of natural gas. And there should be more government stimulus for the development of distribution networks. In this respect, the second thing is increasing the share of renewables. According to the long-term national program for encouraging the use of renewable energy sources, the accessible potential for the development for the different renewables is around 6,000 million oil equivalent. It includes biomass, wind, solar, geothermal, and hydro energy. Given that gross consumption in 2008 is almost 20,000 in terms of oil equivalent, this means 1/3 of the total need for consumption we can develop. So developing renewables is the second place business can have a more pronounced role. The third thing is increasing energy efficiency in production areas as well as everyday consumption by households. Thus, according to Eurostat latest data, when calculated based on the gross energy consumption, Bulgarian economy is 5.6 times more energy intensive compared to EU 27 average. What is the reason for this? The reason for this is that in EU 27, the loss in the process of energy production and transportation to the final consumers represents approximately 1/3 of the energy input, while in Bulgaria it is 50%. On the second place in Bulgaria, primary energy resources used as input in the process's transformation are 96% of the gross domestic consumption of heat power energy, and 2/3 are used by power station for heat power energy and electricity. During this process, more than 70% of the primary sources are lost. On the third place, low share of highly effective combined electricity production in Bulgaria leads to energy waste. And on the fourth place, in the industrial sector, the energy intensity is higher than the average for EU 27 due to the structure of the economy in which the subsectors with high energy intensity dominate. So there is huge potential for improvement on the basis of developing projects for decreasing energy intensity through deploying different strategies. What are the results of the energy policy of our government up to now? As a result of these policies, there is a pronounced tendency for the decrease in energy intensity for the last decade. In the period 1999 to 2007, GDP grows on average 5.3% and gross domestic consumption with around 1.4%. Gross domestic consumption of energy. As a result of this, energy intensity, calculated on the basis of gross domestic energy consumption for this period, decreases with 24%. What is the main conclusion? Given the fact that currently 9.4% of the total energy consumption comes from renewables, there certainly are prerequisites in Bulgaria for the achievement of the target of 16% set out by EU. And there is space and place for the business to take action that will pay back. The success shows that where there is political and business will, there are results. And what remains to be done is the Bulgarian government to increase stimuli for the business, for the production and distribution of energy from renewables, and the business to be more active in developing the opportunities. Thank you for the attention.
I'd like to thank Ms. Ziliaskova for her presentation, and I would like to invite Mr. Zisis Mathidinos to the floor. He is going to talk about the necessity of crisis management mechanisms in the tourism industry. So, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Set my presentation. So, I'm Zisis Mathidinos. I'm a PhD candidate here in the University of Macedonia in the Business Administration Department. And I'm going to talk about crisis management, the contemporary constant need for business continuity in the tourism industry. As all of us know, tourism is a vital economic sector in many countries. Although the evolution of tourism in the last few years has been irregular, especially in 2008 and 2009, mainly due to the international economic crisis, the World Tourism Organization maintains its long-term forecast for the moment and forecasts that international arrivals are expected to reach nearly 1.6 billion by the year 2020. Globally, tourism is a 852 billion industry, according to the data collected for 2009, and it is the single largest non-government economic sector in the world. The globalization of the tourism industry has led to a rapid expansion of tourism businesses on an international scale in order to expand their market share and profitability. The enormous growth tourism has experienced in the past years has also as a consequence of technological advancements in sectors such as transportations, internet, etc., which brought the world's many destinations, no matter how far within reach, has resulted in a much stronger interconnectedness and complexity within the tourism system, and made the industry in many regions around the world an important factor in their socio-economic development. However, these processes have also opened business up to a wider set of global risks involved in running businesses at such a scale, as globalization is often seen as complex and chaotic. Tourism is often described as a fragile industry because demand for travel is highly susceptible to numerous shocks such as wars, outbreaks of deadly contagious diseases, incidents of terrorism, economic fluctuations, currency instability, energy crisis, and so on. The basic aims of the paper is to support the interconnection of the global tourism industry, which results in a constant and volatile business environment, and to enforce the need that for the stakeholders of the tourism businesses to adopt crisis management as a core competence in order to support their business continuity. After the introduction, which has been already done, there is a definition of crisis in general. More specifically, the definition of crisis in the tourism industry, the importance of tourism for the Greek economy, the importance of crisis management for the tourism businesses, and the paper ends with some conclusions. A general definition for the crisis, for the term crisis, which is widely used in several scientific contexts, like medicine, psychology, economy, society, etc., is that it is an unpleasant and difficult situation that has to be managed as effectively as possible. Elsubauch et al., some researchers suggest that the crises are an inevitable part of business today and cannot be separated from regular business activity. And of course, understanding crisis and disasters, their life cycle potential impacts and actions can help in the development of strategies by organizations to deal with such incidents and stop or reduce the severity of their impacts on business and society despite their complexity. As far as the tourism industry is concerned, there are several defining approaches for crises and disasters in the tourism industry. Laws and Prideaux say that it is an event that leads to a shock resulting in the sudden emergence of an adverse situation. McKercher and Hui say that crises are inevitable episodic events that disrupt the tourism and hospitality industry on a regular basis. And there is another view of Coles who says that when not in crisis, destinations are in an extended program of practically pre-event limbo, almost waiting for the important trigger event to take place. This means that the tourism business is always not in crisis, is in a pre-crisis phase. At the classification of tourism crisis, there are several proposed classifications. Depending on their gestation period, we have Parsons, which classifies tourism crisis in immediate, emerging, and sustained, and Seymour and Moore, which classify the tourism crisis to Cobra, Sudden, Python, which it's similar to emerging. Depending on the human involvement, we have a classification of Karagiannis et al. With a direct human involvement, indirect or no human involvement. South Marriage, a similar one, natural or man-made. The types of the most serious forms of tourism crisis coming out from the literature or the experience are supposed to be terrorism, natural disasters, political instability and war, epidemics and diseases, and economic recessions. So if we want to classify these 5 forms of crisis according to the classifications proposed above, we have this table. We can see, for example, that terrorism is supposed to be immediate, Cobra type, direct, and man-made crisis. And natural disaster, immediate, Cobra, indirect or no involvement, man-made and natural, and so on. I'm going to speak a little more about each form of crisis. First, we have terrorism. The new millennium has been defined by several crises since the terrorist attacks in the New York City and Washington, D.C. on September 11th, 2001. These acts of terror shocked the world and marked the beginning of a gloomy sentiment in the tourism industry. Several terrorist inflicted tourism crises followed, including Bali bombings on October 2002, Madrid train bombings on 2004, frequent armed unrest in southern Thailand since January 2004, London terrorist attacks, etc. Tourists are often the specific targets of terrorist organizations, and thus because tourism is viewed to represent capitalism and conspicuous consumption, and an attack on tourists signifies ideological opposition to these Western values. In other areas of the world where tourism is a state-sponsored industry, an attack on tourists can symbolize an attack on the government. And usually, the problems that terrorism crisis cause regarding the tourism sector, which can be magnified and affect a considerable area or the globe in all, can be summarized as following: challenge of tourism safety attitudes and beliefs, and impacts on several travel and tourism procedures. For example, after the attacks in New York World Trade Center, we have security rules became more strict all over the world. All of us have seen these changes. We have the second form of natural disasters. Several authors have emphasized the vulnerability of tourist destinations and thus tourists to disasters, and some have suggested that in this situation tourists might be more exposed to danger than anyone else because they are not in home. That's why. Natural disasters appear to have become more frequent in recent years. The implications are profound, especially since many affected areas are heavily reliant on tourism for economic vitality. Several natural disasters, including earthquakes, flooding, wildfires, hurricanes that occurred during the last years, are representative examples of the extent to which natural disaster can harm the tourism industry of a considerable part of the world. And the problems that the natural disasters cause regarding the tourism sector, which can affect a considerable area, can be summarized in an increase of tourists' concerns about security and safety, and the destruction of infrastructure and facilities. We have the most recent example of the natural disaster that affect the tourism industry is the Iceland volcano S case a month ago, which caused serious problem to the airline transportations and tourism in general. Of course, there are not, until now, specific statistical data about this, but I think that there are obvious negative impacts. Then we have political instability and war. Political instability is a situation in which conditions and mechanisms of governance and rule are challenged as to their political legitimacy by elements operating from outside of the normal operations of the political system, a definition. And the problems are the same with terrorism, about the tourism beliefs about safety and security, etc. Then we have epidemics and diseases. There is an interface between health and tourism, and this is an integral part of the tourist experience, which affects overall satisfaction levels for tourists and can ultimately affect their quality of life. And the problems for tourism industry, the concerns about the health and food safety. The most representative example of this form of tourism crisis with the SARS epidemic, which started from a Chinese province, and it affected all the international tourism industry. And we have a more recent paradigm of the H1N1 flu. Then we have economic recession. As the tourism industry is an integral component of the global economy, and there is no doubt that tourism is strongly affected by economic crisis. For example, international tourist arrivals for business, leisure, and other purposes are estimated to have declined worldwide by 4% in 2009 as a result of the economic crisis. During tough economic times, people conserve their cash to cover the essentials of life, food, shelter, and family necessities. So tourism industry is highly affected by the economic recessions. And let's go to the importance of tourism for the Greek economy. You can see here some statistical data. It's about for the year 2008. Here in Greece, we consider that tourism is our heavy industry. And the second table gives some data about the Greek tourism compared with its main competitors, which is Spain, Cyprus, Turkey, Egypt, and Croatia. From all this data presented in the paper, all these data prove that the great importance of tourism sector for Greece and its major contribution to the Greek economy, and put an increasing need for the development of strategies and plans in order to manage unpleasant situations such as crises and disasters. Unfortunately, recently we have in Greece some negative developments considering the macroeconomic situation of the country and the social reactions to this, all which are harming the tourism, the Greek tourism image. So we can consider that the Greek tourism is facing a strong crisis. So the importance of crisis management for the tourism businesses, negative consequences of these incidents can be moderated if the stakeholders involved in tourism industry get prepared for confronting such incidents. There is no way to ensure that an organization will escape crisis. The need for crisis preparedness is obvious, and crisis preparation should be of highly concern for every business involved in tourism industry. So, as we have seen in the paper, tourism is a very important economic sector worldwide, especially for Mediterranean countries. Tourism is a fragile industry susceptible to numerous disasters and crises. By understanding this phenomena, more effective strategies can be developed to stop or reduce the severity of these impacts on business and society despite their complexity. And managers of the organizations involved in tourist businesses should adopt crisis management as a part of their organizational routine. Thus, crisis management is a contemporary constant need for business continuity in the tourism industry. Thank you for your attention.
I would like to thank Mr. Macedonis for his presentation and for keeping within the time limit. Now we'll go to the last of our speakers, Mr. Angus Gunawan. He is going to present a paper regarding increasing the managerial capabilities in Indonesia. Mr. Gunawan, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity. I want to, Muhammad Wahdan is from Egypt, and Japan Herik is from Netherlands, and I'm from Indonesia, and we will try to think about how is the impact of international business to the small medium enterprise. Okay. So for the first time, we will talk about why garment manufacturing by small medium enterprise is important for Indonesia and maybe for major of the countries. And then we will state about the problem statement and research objective. We will deliver about the research methodology. What is the root phenomena that we can take as the point to make a contribution for this issue? And is it suitable for a hybrid knowledge-based system? And the significance of the research. For the first one, we want to describe about the garment manufacturing by small medium enterprise. Garment manufacturing in small medium enterprise have contribute about 97.3% of the absorption level in Indonesian employees. Considering Indonesia as one of the high population density in the world, is it very important for the financial. And then garment manufacturing by small medium enterprise also contribute about 53.6% to Indonesia gross domestic product. So it's crucial. That's why the Indonesia Ministry of Industry stated that garment manufacturing is a strategic industrial sector for Indonesia. Okay. It looks beautiful, and also, for example, we appointed as the 5th countries who export garment to US after China, Mexico, India, and Hong Kong. But the problem is, it is not still longer. So now, the garment manufacturing in Indonesia suffer a lot. Our ministry get a report about the discontinue of this garment manufacturing. It means that a lot of unemployment also. If we talk about Asian free trade area after, which have a goal to eliminate all import duties within ASEAN members countries, and their economic partners such as Japan, China, and Korea, is a beautiful idea. Why? Because maybe it's like European Union. They want to try to integrate Asian economy into a single production base. They want to make a long-term competitiveness of ASEAN members countries. They want to provide wider choices of better quality. Okay. It means that it's a good one. But based on the research, the literature review, observation, and also interview with the garment manufacturing businessmen, there are two parties. One of them said that, yeah, with the ASEAN free trade with the zero duty fees for importing garment manufacturing or any kind of products to Indonesia, it will increase the possibility to export also our product. But the businessman who optimistic with the AFTA is only the person who rely on the export market. How about the small medium enterprise who usually rely on domestic market? They hit negatively by AFTA. In this paper, we talk more particular with the Asian-China foreign trade area. So it's only It's only the China product that we describe in the paper. Foreign garment products in domestic market have dominated our market. For example, if we go to Indonesian supermarket, factory outlet, etc., you can find about 70% China garment product there. It means that the market for the Indonesian garment manufacturing is decreasing a lot. If we talk about illegal import will decrease by zero duty, it is still bullshit for now. Why? Because there are varying about 0%, 5%, 10%, and 15% of product for the duty of the product. Most of the garment that used by Indonesian is still in the 15% tax product. It means that there will be more and more illegal garment product come to Indonesia, for example, from China. To support that idea, we researched from the statistic, and there are 380% improving number of illegal 380% import of garment China's product to Indonesia. It is not included the illegal one. The 380% increases import garment is only for 5 years. So it shows that it's hit Indonesian a lot. Okay. That's why most of the garment manufacturing shift their operation into a retailer. They will have or they will face less risk in selling the garment product from China instead of produced by themselves. It's okay for the businessman, but the problem is how about the employee? They will not have a job for that. Okay. So what countermeasures can we take? We try to dig from the literature review and make interview to find the root of problem, and we use the method from Brown in 2008 and Winerga and Herkens in 2003 to do this one, and we try to dig about is it possible to use knowledge-based system to help the garment manufacturing. Why we talk about that? Because, for example, if we talk that, hey, you can give garment manufacturing low level of interest for their productive issue, it will be not so easy because bank also have blacklist the government manufacturing in their customer. Why? Because it's high risk for the bank to give money, to lend money to this kind of businessman. Okay. The research objective is to increase the managerial capabilities in financial monitoring and evaluating activities. And a hybrid knowledge system might have a positive impact for increasing or to enhancing Indonesian manager capabilities. As I have stated before, is based on literature review, in-depth interviews, and also observation. Okay, this is the we can say the conclusion about from a lot of literature review, but why Indonesian have a lack of competitiveness, especially in price for the product. So one of the thinking is because the inefficiency and ineffectiveness in production and distribution process, and why there is inefficiency and ineffectiveness, because lack of skill, problems in productivity business, and lack of capital. And we focus on how to help the manager in that business to have adequate monitoring and evaluating activities and to interpret financial system analysis reports. Why? Because most of them do their business by their intuition. For example, they think that the more you sell, the more profitable you. Okay, but most of them forget about taking care about the accumulation of debt of the customer. What's happened then? They give debt selling to one customer, and then that kind of customer cannot pay again to them or disappear. What's happened to this small, medium enterprise business? They are dead. They think that, hey, I'm good. I sell a lot. It's okay. He can pay me 1 month later, 2 months later, or etc. Some of them also try to swift to have a kind of doing the job for bigger companies. The bigger companies get the order from abroad. Oh, so it's good. It's an export one. But what happened then? International get hit by the global financial crisis. The payment is delayed. And for example, also the research and development cost that originally in the abroad or foreign company expense, now the foreign companies put that kind of expense to Indonesia. The bigger companies put that expense to the small one companies. And then they have less and less profit. So it is important for Indonesian manager in small medium enterprise who majority is not well educated. Maybe they are okay writing or reporting in accounting, but then what is the figure? What is the meaning of this one? What is the trend to the future? Is it high risk or low risk or etc.? They don't know about it. They only know about, okay, I must make a reporting for tax issue. Finish. Okay. How to help this kind of people to understand or to know about the figure? Maybe we can say that, okay, hire an expert, financial expert. It will be easy. The problem next is they don't have money for hiring their professional person. And some of them also don't want to hire professional expert because they don't trust it. They give the financial issue only to the family. Okay. So interpretation of the financial analysis can be varied. So to make the numbers in financial analysis useful, we propose the hybrid knowledge-based system, a computer-based system that can be used by the by the small medium enterprise manager, they can put their figure, etc., and they can get the trend about what's happened. Is it a good one or bad one? Which one is the customer is more prospective and the others? The hybrid is composed by 3 dimensions: is knowledge-based system, accounting information system, and analytical hierarchy process. So, based on this prototype that is built now, we want to improve the financial analysis process, optimizing managers' decision, improving monitoring, evaluating, and supporting with a hybrid knowledge-based system that is adequate with IGMS characteristic, the characteristic of the small medium enterprise in Indonesia. Okay, thank you.
I would like to thank very much Mr. Gunawan for his presentation. Now I believe that we have had a variety of issues raised in these papers, and the floor belongs to you if you want to submit questions to the panelists regarding their papers and the topics arise therein. Who would like to submit a question? Well, it seems that either they were completely analytical and everybody understood everything, or the other way around. So I don't want to... I would like to ask a question regarding our second panelist. One thing that if I didn't get it, okay, I apologize, but one thing that, especially here in northern Greece, we are particularly concerned about regarding the energy sector in Bulgaria is its potential for nuclear energy. So I would like to know if you have, in your research, you have encountered any sort of perspective for the development of full-scale nuclear energy plants in Bulgaria.
Thank you for the question. Yes, although it was not the focus of my research, I would like to say a few words about it. In Bulgaria, we produce energy from, in our nuclear power plant, which is in Kozlodui. And now the second project that we have about the second power plant is under consideration currently by our government. So there is no clear view yet whether this plant is going to be developed and completed or not. So we don't still have a clear view whether we are going to produce more electricity based on nuclear energy or not. This is still pending somehow, and everything will depend, because if we go and develop this plant, of course we will have more electricity for export, but for the moment we cannot say anything for sure. So that is it.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay.
But the European
Due to the lack
Union
of
is against the
questions from the audience, I would like to thank you all for your attention.